Good morning everyone. I am S. Bodhumani, Assistant Professor from CSE Department. Today's topic is Introduction to Processes. So today we are going to cover process concept, different parts of the process, memory layout of the process, different states of the process control block, threads, process representation in Linux operating system. Afterwards, process scheduling, in that read and wait queues, context switch, operations on the process, which covers the process creation and also process termination. First topic is process concept. So an operating system executes a variety of programs that run as a process. Process is a program in execution. Process execution must progress in the sequential fashion. No parallel execution of instructions of a single process. So it contains multiple parts. First part is text section, which contains the program code. Second one is the program counter and processor register. These registers are going to handle the current activity of the process, and the program counter provide the address of the next instruction to be executed. Then stack, which is going to provide the temporary data. Temporary data means it may be function parameters, return address, and local variables of the particular program. And the data section includes the global variables. And heap indicate the dynamic memory. If the process need the dynamic allocation of the memory, means heap will help for that. Then program is a passive entity which is stored on a disk. So this is nothing but a executable file. Then process is a active entity. So when a program becomes process, means this executable file is loaded into the memory. Automatically program is converted as process. So the execution of your program started via the GUI, graphical user interface, mouse clicks, command line entry of its names, etc. So one program can be several processes. Consider multiple users executing the same program, means it will be come under the example. Process in memory. So already we saw the process parts. So first one is text part, second one is data part, third one is heap, which provides the dynamic allocation, then stack, which is going to hold the temporary data. So this is nothing but 0 to maximum indicate the addresses. So this is a small memory layout of a C program. So consider this sample C program, which starts from #include stdio.h, which contains a preprocessor directive, that is #include. stdio.h is nothing but standard input output header file. Then standard library also added here. Here I am going to declare two variables, integer x, then integer y equal to 15. In these two variables, I assign the 15 value to the y variable, but x doesn't contains any value. So the data section will be divided into two parts. First one is uninitialized data. Second one is initialized data. So we have two variables here. First variable is not initialized one. So automatically it will be considered as the uninitialized data. The integer x will be stored in the uninitialized data. Second one, integer y equal to 15. So it will be moved to the initialized data. Afterwards, we have started our main function, integer main of integer argument c, then character argument b. So these are all considered as the command line arguments. So this will be come to the high memory. I mean these two arguments, these two variables are going to store in the high memory. Then opening and opening parenthesis, in that integer star values, then integer I. So value is equal to integer asterisk symbol, which indicates the pointer here. Then malloc, memory allocation. So I didn't allocate any memory for values. Memory values are indicated with the help of the pointer. So here only I am going to allot the memory. So malloc means memory allocation. So size of integer asterisk symbol 5. So what is the meaning? Size of integer means 2 bytes, 2 into 5. So I need 10 bytes to store my values. So this is the dynamic memory allocation. So automatically it will be allotted with the help of the heap area. The next one, for I equal to 0, I less than 5, I plus plus. So here only I am going to initialize the value I equal to 0. Then when the value is less than 5 means I am going to increment the I value. So the current I value 0 will be stored in the values of I. So this loop will be repeated till the I value reaches less than or equal to 5. Then return 0. So the main function will close. So the memory layout of a C program provides how the variables and how the dynamic memory allocation is stored in the process. Next one, process state. So as a process executes, it changes its state. There are 5 process states are available. First one is new. The process is being created. Second one, running state. Instructions are being executed. Third one is the waiting state. The process is waiting for some event to occur. Then next one is the ready state. The process is waiting to be assigned to a processor. The last state is terminated state. The process has finished the execution. So this is a pictorial representation of the process state. So whenever the process is created, it will be in the state of new. Afterwards, it will be moved to the state of ready state. Ready state means the process is ready for the execution and it's waiting for the processor. Processor is nothing but our CPU. So it's waiting for the CPU means the process will be available in the ready state. Then when the CPU is allotted for the particular process, the process will move from ready state to running state. So when the process is on execution, if there is any IO, input output or even means automatically it will be moved to the waiting state. After completion of the IO or even completion, then only the process will be moved to the ready state. Again we started waiting for the processor allocation. If there is any interrupt occur at the running state means again it will be moved to the ready state and waiting for the CPU's response. After completion of the process will be moved to the terminated state. Means after exits from the particular execution, it will be moved to the terminated state. Then this is the overall diagram about your process control block. The alternative name is task control block. So what are the information associated with each and every process that will be stored in a process control block or task control block. So first one is process state. Process state means what are the 5 process states are available. What is our current state that will be stored as the process state here. The next one, process number, which is going to provide the unique identifier of the process number here. Then program counter, which is going to provide the location of the instruction to next execution. Then CPU register, which is going to contain all the process centric register. It means it may contain accumulator or stack pointers or any type of registers like index register, base register, depend upon the CPU architecture, depend upon the computer system, the CPU registers are covered here. Then CPU scheduling information. So what type of CPU scheduler we are using in that, whether we are using priority scheduling or we are using round robin scheduling, depend upon that it will contains the priorities of the CPU scheduling and scheduling queue pointers also available in the CPU scheduling information. Then memory management information means what is the memory is allocated to the particular process and what is the value of the base register and what is the value of the limit register. Generally the value of the base register contains the starting address of your process and limit register means it contains the range of your process and what is the page table we are using or we are using segment table. Depend upon the operating system architecture, depend upon the operating system, these memory management information will be vary. The next one, accounting information. So this will provide the CPU utilization, the clock time for the particular process and what is the time limit and what about the process number. These details are accounted and these details are stored in the accounting information. Then finally, IO status information. What are the IO devices are allocated to the process and what are the list of open files. These details are available in the IO status information. The next one, threads. So far, a process has a single thread of execution. So if you consider a multiple program counters per process means multiple locations can execute at once. So that time it will be named as multiple threads of control. That time we are using multi-threading. For example, word process is the best example for that. Whenever you are open a particular document to type your data or type your content, that time one thread will concentrate on the getting value from the keyboard, another one thread will concentrate on the spell check, another one thread will concentrate on the background process, like that. So this is an example for multi-threading. So must have storage for thread details, multiple program counters in the PCB. Then this is a process representation in Linux operating system. Here we are using C structure. Structure means already we know that, which is going to collect the different data types in a single name. So the structure name is mentioned as a task underscore struct. So it contains the valuable information about the particular process. For example, process identifier. This is a unique number. Second one is the state of the process. What is the state? It may be new state or ready state or running state, like that. Then what is the scheduling information, and what about the process state means parent process or child process, like that. Then list of open files, and what is the address is allotted for the particular process. Everything will be collected with the help of the task underscore struct. This structure is used to collect these type of informations. Then generally in Linux, all the processor structures are implemented with the help of the linked list only. In linked list, there are different type of linked lists are available. Here they are used the doubly linked list. So the first list point out the second one, same thing the second list point out the first one also. And also it contains a pointer named current, so which is going to provide the currently executing process. So what are the different processes are running at the time? Everything will be linked with the help of the doubly linked list. Next one is process scheduling. Before moving to the process scheduling, we should know about degree of multiprogramming. Degree of multiprogramming is nothing but number of processes are running currently in the memory is mentioned with the help of the degree of multiprogramming. So there are two different type of processes are available. One is the IO bound process, another one is the CPU bound process. So CPU bound process means which utilize the CPU more compared to your IO devices. Less interactions only available in the CPU bound processes. Whereas in IO bound processes, we are using the IO devices more than the CPU. User interaction is more compared to the CPU bound processes. So whenever the process scheduler going to select the process for the next execution for the CPU, its goal is maximize the CPU use, quickly switch the process onto CPU core. So to achieve this goal, the process scheduler maintain a scheduling queues of the processes. So first one is ready queue, second one is wait queue. Ready queue is nothing but which is going to provide a set of all the processes residing in main memory, ready and waiting to execute. Second one, wait queues, it is going to provide the set of processes waiting for an event. It may be IO event. Processes migrates among the various queues. And this is a pictorial representation about the ready and wait queues. Here also we are using the linked list. So this is a queue header, and head is point out the first PCB7, that is process 7's process control block. The process control block 7 indicate the process control block 2 also. So what are the information regarding the process 7 and process 2, everything will be stored here. Then the tail going to implement with the help of the that is the last one is mentioned with the help of the tail of the ready queue. Then wait queue, here also head and tail. Here also the head point out the first process control block, tail point out the last process control block. Then this is a representation of process scheduling. So first all the processes are in a ready queue. The processes are waiting for the CPU allocation. Generally this circle mention the resources. So the CPU, IO, child terminates and interrupt occurs. These are all considered as the resources here. And these rectangular boxes are represent the queues generally. So here ready queue contains all the processes. CPU is allotted for the first process. The process is on execution. In between, the process need any IO request means automatically CPU from CPU. The particular process is switch over from the CPU, and then it is waiting for the IO wait queue. After getting the IO devices, again it will be moved to the ready queue. At the time, CPU will process another one process from the ready queue. Suppose the process is going to create any child process means that time also CPU switches from the first process to second process. After creating the child process termination wait queue should be needed for the create child process. Then it should be wait till the child terminates. Afterwards it will be moved to the ready queue. Then again the CPU will be allotted for that. Suppose it's wait for an interrupt means it will be moved to the interrupt wait queue. After the interrupt occur, then again it will be moved to the ready queue. Then the CPU will be allotted for that. And time slice or time quantum is nothing but, suppose your CPU scheduling algorithm is the round robin scheduling means. For example, we have 3 or 4 processors like that. For each and every process, CPU will be allotted for only 4 milliseconds means. So first 4 milliseconds only, the first process will occupy the CPU. In the 5th second, automatically the time slice expired for the first process. So after the 4 millisecond, the process 1 should be moved from execution state to time slice expired state. Again it will be moved to the ready queue and wait for the CPU allocation. The next one is the CPU scheduler. CPU scheduler is nothing but which is going to select the processes from ready queue and allocate the CPU core to one of them. So the CPU scheduler must select a new process for the CPU frequently. So here also the CPU should consider what about the IO bound processes and CPU bound processes. So the CPU scheduler executes at least once every 100 milliseconds. So frequently it is used by the CPU scheduler is used by the processors. Then swapping. So this is a key idea to remove a process from the memory, and thus we can reduce the degree of multi-programming. Later, the process can be reintroduced into the memory and its execution can be continued where it left off. This scheme is known as swapping because a process can be swapped out from memory to disk where its current state is saved, and later it should be swapped in from the disk back to the memory where its status is restored. Then this is a small pictorial representation about how the CPU switches from process to process. So the CPU switches from process to process, that will be named as context switch. So a context switch occurs when the CPU switches from one process to another process. For example, in this diagram, we have two processes, process P0 and process P1. Okay, so here process P0 is executing now. Suppose the CPU switch over from process P0 to P1 means automatically it should be switch over with the help of the interrupt or system call. So before moving to the process 1, this operating system save the current state of the PCB0 means what is the program counter block of the process 0, what are the details are available, what is the current state, what are the temporary data, everything will be saved in the PCB 0. Afterwards, it reload the state from the PCB 1. What is the starting address of the next process 1? What is the process identifier? What are the instructions are available? Everything will be reloaded from the PCB 1. Then the CPU started execution of the process number 1. Same thing, suppose the CPU is going to switches from process P1 to P0 means that time also it save the state of the process 1 into the PCB 1. Afterwards, it's going to reload the state from the PCB 0. Afterwards, it start executing the P0. So when the CPU switches from P0 to P1, before that, what happened? We are going to save the state of the process control block. Right? So that time, both the processes are idle. That is explained in this diagram, noted in the diagram as idle. So when a CPU switches to another process, the system must save the state of the old process and load the saved state for the new process via a context switch. So context of a process represented in the process control block. Context switch time is pure overhead because both the processes are in the idle mode only. The system does no useful work while switching. So if there is any complex OS and the PCB means automatically what will happen, in the longer the context switch time. The context switch time is somewhat large compared to other easy OSs. Then time depend on the hardware support. Some hardware provides the multiple sets of register pairs register per CPU. That is multiple contexts loaded at the same time. So the time is fully depend upon the hardware you are used in your computer architecture. Then multitasking in mobile system. Some mobile system, for example, earlier version of iOS allow only one process to run, others should be suspended. But due to the screen real estate, the user interface limits iOS provides for a single foreground process which is going to control via the user interface multiple background processes. The background processes mean it should be executed in memory, running state, but not on the display. It contains some limitations also. Limits means it includes a single or short task, or receiving notification of events, a specific long running task like audio playback, like that. Then Android phone or Android OS runs the foreground and background with fewer limits. The background processes uses a service to perform the task. The service can keep running even if background process is suspended also. Then service has no user interface, only small memory is used for the particular service. Then operating system operations on the processors. The system must provide mechanisms for process creation and process termination. So the first one is process creation. So the parent process creates a child process, which in turn create another processes. It's going to form a tree of processes. Generally, process is identified and managed via the process identifier, unique identifier PID. Then some resource sharing options are available. First one is parent and the children can able to share all the resources. Second one, children share subset of the parent resources. Third one, parent and child share no resources. And how the execution options are there means both parent and children can execute concurrently, otherwise parent should wait until the children terminate. So this is a normal tree structure of the processes in the Linux operating system. So this system D, which is the root process of each and every Linux operating system. So this contains the PID always 1. Okay, so it's create lot of processes like this. Login ID, which is going to manage the user logins here. It's PID, I mean process ID is 8415, and we open the Python. In that also PID is created as 2808, and it create another one process named SSHD, secure shell daemon. This is going to create lot of processes. Each and every different process can able to manage the system resources. It can use it for authentication, encryption, etc. Then the bash and then TCCH are both are used as the command line interpreter, and PS indicate the process state here, and BIM improved editor. This is act like a text editor. So next one is a small example program for how the C program forking a separate process, means creating a new processes. So first we are going to include the necessary header files, then started with the main program, then indicate the PID with the help of the PID underscore T. Then we are going to create a new process. For that I am going to use the function named forkof. So PID equal to forkof. If the PID is less than 0 means automatically it should be a error. It will be it will be in the printf statement like that, fork failed, and then it return the 1 and then exits from the loop. Suppose the PID equal to 0 means automatically the child process is created. Then the child process should start its work. After execution, it will be come out of the loop. Otherwise, it is a parent process. We should wait for other child process to create or terminate. Then the parent, after completion of the child process, the parent process will terminate its work. Afterwards return 0. There is a small pictorial representation for that. So first the parent process create the child processes with the help of the fork. So is there is PID equal to 0 means there is no problem. The child is created and the child is going to execute now. Suppose it contains greater than 0 value means the parent should be wait for the child to terminate. After termination of the child, automatically exit system call will be called, and then it will be resumed with the help of the wait system call. Then the parent resume. Then the parent will start its work automatically. The next one, process termination. Process executes last statement and then asks the operating system to delete it using the exit system call. So it returns the status data from the child to parent via the wait system call. Process resources are deallocated by the operating system. Parent may terminate the execution of the children process using the abort system call. What are the reasons for abort system call? Means the child can exceed the allocation of resources. This is a major point. Second one, the task assigned to the child is no longer required means that time also the parent can call this abort system call. Then the third one, the parent is exiting. Automatically, some operating system does not allow a child to continue if its parent is terminates. Some operating system does not allow the child to exist if its parent has terminated. If a process is terminated, then all its children must also be terminated. This process is named as cascading termination. So all the children, grandchildren, etc., all the processes are going to terminate. Then the termination is initiated by the operating system only. Then the parent process may wait for termination of a child process by using the wait system call. The call returns the status information and the process ID for the terminated process. That is PID equal to wait within bracket ampersand status. So the status will be moved to the wait system call. If no parent waiting, that is did not invoke the wait means the process is named as zombie process. If the parent terminated without invoking the wait means the process is called orphan process. Then Android process importance hierarchy. So here the mobile operating system often have to terminate the processes to reclaim the system resources such as memory. So how they are reclaiming the memory means with the help of the most important process and least important process. So here the list of processes are available. The list will be provided like that, most to least. So first one is foreground process, second one is visible process, third one is service processes like that, then fourth one background process, finally empty processes. So the Android OS will begin the terminating processes that are least important. Then multi-process architecture. Example is our Chrome web browser. So many of the web browsers run as a single process, still also some still do. One if one website causes trouble means the entire browser can hang or crash. So here in the Google Chrome browser, this is a multi-process with three different type of processes are available. First one is browser, second one is a renderer, third one is plugin. In this pictorial representation, see each tab represents a separate process. So 4 tabs are open here. First one is a Chrome browser, second one is a osbook.com. The next one also here Willy OS operating system concepts are available. Then BBC homepage is available. Each and every tag will take care by the different process, that is separate process. So first one, the browser process manages the user interface, a disk and also network input output. Then the renderer process renders the web pages which is going to deal with the HTML and also JavaScript. The new renderer will created for each website is open. Then runs in a sandbox restricting disk and network I/O, minimizing the effect of security exploits. Finally, plugin process for each type of plugin supported with the different tabs. Thank you.